let me ask you something real. What if the thing holding you back isn't bad luck, isn't your past, isn't your parents, your boss, or your situation? What if the habit destroying your life is something you do every single day and call it normal? Stay with me. Because once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Waiting feels harmless at first. It feels responsible. It feels mature. You tell yourself you're just being careful, just planning, just making sure everything is lined up before you move. You convince yourself that patience is a virtue, and that one day, when the conditions are right, you'll finally take action. But what you don't realize is that this kind of waiting isn't wisdom, it's avoidance. It's fear wearing a calm face. And the longer you stay in that place, the more comfortable it becomes until comfort starts quietly replacing growth. Comfort doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't challenge you to stretch, to risk embarrassment, to face uncertainty. It lets you stay exactly where you are and tells you that staying still is the same as being safe. But safety has a price. Every day you choose comfort over action. You trade away progress for predictability. You lose the sharp edge that comes from pushing yourself. You lose momentum. And slowly, without noticing, you start to shrink your dreams to fit the life you're willing to live instead of expanding your life to match the dreams you once had. Waiting gives you the illusion of control. You feel like as long as you're not moving, you can't fail. You can't be judged. You can't be rejected. But what really happens is more dangerous than failure. You stay untested, untouched, unproven. You never find out what you're capable of because you never step into the arena. You never collect evidence of your strength. And over time, that absence of proof turns into self-doubt. Not because you're weak, but because you never gave yourself the chance to be strong. Time doesn't pause while you're waiting. It doesn't slow down because you're unsure. Every hour that passes is an hour that could have been invested in learning, practicing, building, or failing forward. Time compounds whether you use it or not. While you're waiting for the perfect moment, someone else is moving imperfectly and getting better with every step. They're not more talented. They're not more confident. They're just willing to move while you're still deciding. And over years, that gap becomes a canyon. Waiting slowly rewires how you see yourself. At first, it's, I'll do it soon. Then it becomes, I'm not ready yet. Eventually, without realizing it, it turns into, maybe this isn't for me. Not because the dream died, but because waiting starved it. The longer you delay action, the more foreign your own ambition feels. What once excited you starts to intimidate you. What once felt possible begins to feel unrealistic. Not because the goal changed, but because you stayed still while life moved on. The most dangerous part of waiting is that it feels normal. Everyone around you is doing it too. Waiting for motivation, waiting for confidence, waiting for approval. So you blend in. You tell yourself you have time. You tell yourself you're being smart. But deep down, there's a quiet tension you can't ignore. The feeling that you're capable of more than the life you're currently living. That tension is the cost of comfort. It's the price you pay for staying safe. And the longer you wait, the higher that price becomes. Most people believe motivation is something you're supposed to feel before you act. They wake up waiting for energy, waiting for inspiration, waiting for that sudden internal push that makes everything feel easy. And when it doesn't come, they assume something is wrong with them. They think they lack discipline, passion, or drive. But motivation was never meant to lead the way. It was never the starting line. Motivation shows up after movement, not before it. And the belief that it must come first keeps millions of people frozen in place. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. They rise and fall depending on sleep, stress, mood, weather, and circumstance. If you build your life on motivation, your progress will always be inconsistent. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, and other days you won't feel anything at all. That's not a character flaw. It's human nature. The mistake is expecting something unpredictable to carry something permanent. Growth doesn't respond to how you feel. Growth responds to what you do, especially on the days you don't feel like doing anything. Action changes your internal chemistry. The moment you start, even clumsily, even imperfectly, something shifts. You create momentum. You send a signal to your brain that you're serious. Confidence doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's built through evidence. Every small action becomes proof that you can show up, and that proof generates belief. Belief generates energy. Energy looks like motivation, but it didn't come from waiting. It came from doing. Movement created the feeling you thought you needed first. People often say they don't feel ready, but readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. No one feels fully prepared before stepping into something new. If they did, it wouldn't be new. Readiness comes from repetition, not reflection. The more you act, the more familiar the discomfort becomes. What once felt heavy starts to feel manageable. What once felt impossible starts to feel normal. Motivation grows quietly in the background while you're busy doing the work, not while you're sitting around thinking about it. When you rely on motivation, you give your power away to your moods. You allow temporary feelings to dictate permanent outcomes. But when you move without motivation, you build something stronger than emotion. You build discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It shows up whether you're tired, bored, unsure, or uninspired. And discipline over time creates freedom. It removes negotiation from your day. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "What needs to be done?" That shift changes everything. The truth is, motivation often shows up late. Sometimes it doesn't arrive until after weeks of effort. Sometimes it doesn't come until results start to appear. But when it does arrive, it's no longer fragile. It's rooted in consistency, not excitement. It's steady, not emotional. And by then, you no longer depend on it. You've already learned the most important lesson, that you don't need to feel powerful to act powerful. And you don't need to feel motivated to move forward. Fear survives in distance. It grows in the space between you and the thing you keep avoiding. The longer you stay away from what scares you, the bigger it becomes in your mind. It starts as a concern, then turns into a story, and eventually becomes an identity. You don't just fear the action anymore. You start to believe you are the kind of person who can't do it. Fear feeds on hesitation. It gets stronger when you imagine consequences instead of experiencing reality. Most of what you fear never happens. It exists as a projection, a mental rehearsal of failure, embarrassment, or rejection. Your mind fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios because it's trying to protect you from discomfort. But protection without growth becomes a prison. When fear is left unchecked, it doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you small. It convinces you that staying where you are is less dangerous than moving forward, even when staying still is slowly draining your confidence. The moment you take a step toward what scares you, fear changes shape. It doesn't disappear instantly, but it loses authority. Action introduces facts. You stop guessing and start learning. You realize that the discomfort is survivable, that the rejection doesn't destroy you, that the failure doesn't define you. What once felt overwhelming becomes specific and manageable. Fear thrives in the unknown, but clarity weakens it, and clarity only comes through experience. Courage is often misunderstood as confidence, but confidence usually comes later. Courage is simply movement in the presence of fear. It's showing up with a racing heart and steady feet. It's speaking while your voice shakes. It's starting before you feel prepared. Every time you act despite fear, you train your nervous system to tolerate discomfort. You expand your capacity. And with each repetition, fear has less room to operate because you've proven to yourself that you can handle it. Avoidance teaches your brain that fear is dangerous. Confrontation teaches your brain that fear is temporary. The difference between the two determines how much control fear has over your life. When you avoid, fear grows stronger and faster the next time it appears. When you confront, fear shrinks and retreats. It learns that it cannot stop you. Over time, this changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who backs away and start seeing yourself as someone who moves forward regardless. Fear doesn't leave forever. It evolves as you grow. New levels bring new discomfort, new risks, and new doubts. But once you've learned that fear is something you can walk through, not something you must obey, its voice loses its power. You stop treating fear as a signal to stop and start treating it as a sign that you're on the edge of growth. And that shift rewires how you approach challenges, decisions, and opportunities. There comes a moment in every person's life when the excuses run out, when blaming circumstances, people, or timing stops bringing relief and starts feeling empty. That moment is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront a hard truth. No one is coming to rescue you from the life you don't like. Not a mentor, not a boss, not a perfect opportunity, not a sudden breakthrough. Waiting for salvation keeps you passive, and passivity slowly erodes self-respect. From a young age, many people are conditioned to wait for direction. Wait to be chosen. Wait to be promoted. Wait to be told you're good enough. That conditioning follows you into adulthood, where you continue looking outward for permission to live the life you want. But the world doesn't work that way. It rewards initiative, not intention. And the longer you wait for someone else to validate your potential, the more you delay discovering it for yourself. Responsibility is heavy, but it's also freeing. The moment you accept that no one is coming to save you, you reclaim your power. You stop expecting others to fix what only you can face. You stop negotiating with reality. Responsibility means your failures are yours, but so are your wins. It means you don't need approval to begin. You don't need consensus to move. You don't need perfect conditions to act. You only need ownership. Blaming external factors feels easier than taking responsibility because responsibility requires change. It requires effort. It requires uncomfortable honesty. But blame keeps you stuck in the same loop, repeating the same complaints without changing the outcome. When you take responsibility, you shift from victim to participant. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do about this?" That question alone alters the trajectory of your life. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you stop expecting rescue. You become more resourceful, more resilient. You start solving problems instead of rehearsing them. You begin to trust yourself because you have no other option. And that trust grows through action. Each decision you make without waiting for permission strengthens your sense of agency. You realize that you don't need to be saved. You need to step up. This truth doesn't mean you do everything alone or reject help when it appears. It means you no longer depend on help to begin. You move first. You take responsibility for your direction, your effort, and your growth. And when support comes, it becomes a supplement, not a requirement. The shift from waiting to ownership doesn't happen all at once. But once it begins, it changes how you see yourself and the world around you. Most people live at the mercy of how they feel. When they feel good, they move forward. When they feel tired, Bored or discouraged, they stop. This creates a cycle where progress depends on emotion, and emotion is never consistent. Feelings are temporary by nature. They shift with circumstances, energy levels, and external events. Building a life on feelings is like building on unstable ground. It looks fine until pressure hits. Discipline is different. Discipline is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't require excitement or passion. It operates quietly, often unnoticed, but it shows up every day. Discipline is a decision made in advance, before emotions have a chance to interfere. It removes the debate from your mind. You don't ask yourself whether you feel like doing the work. You do it because you decided that this is who you are and this is what you do. When feelings fade, and they always do, discipline becomes the bridge between intention and outcome. It carries you through boredom, doubt, and frustration. It shows up when motivation disappears and confidence feels distant. Discipline keeps promises to yourself when no one else is watching. And each time you follow through despite resistance, you strengthen your identity as someone who can be trusted by themselves. Discipline is not about punishment or rigidity. It's about alignment. It's about choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. Every disciplined action is a vote for the future version of you. It's choosing effort now so that life can be easier later. Without discipline, potential stays theoretical. With discipline, potential becomes reality through repetition. The power of discipline compounds. One small, consistent action repeated daily becomes a system. Systems outperform goals because they don't rely on emotion. They rely on structure. When you build systems around discipline, progress happens automatically. Even on bad days, even on slow days, even on days when nothing feels right, you still move forward because the system carries you. Over time, discipline creates freedom. It gives you options. It reduces stress because you're no longer scrambling or reacting. You trust your process, you trust your effort, and that trust produces calm. Feelings still come and go, but they no longer control your direction. Discipline becomes the steady force that keeps you moving when everything else is unstable. Regret doesn't arrive suddenly. It builds quietly over time, accumulating in the background of your life. It starts as small moments of hesitation, choices not made, chances passed, words not spoken. At first, it's easy to dismiss. You tell yourself there will be another opportunity, another season, another moment when things make more sense. But time doesn't recycle moments. It only moves forward, carrying those unmade decisions with it. Unlike failure, regret has no closure. Failure teaches. It sharpens you. It gives you information you can use. Regret offers nothing but questions. What if you had started earlier? What if you had tried? What if you had believed in yourself just a little more? These questions don't push you forward. They anchor you to the past. And the longer you wait, the heavier those questions become, because they multiply with every year you stay still. People often fear effort because they're afraid of pain, but effort has an expiration date. The discomfort of trying fades. The embarrassment passes. The struggle becomes a story of growth. Regret doesn't fade the same way. It stays vivid because it's fueled by imagination. You don't regret what you did and learned from. You regret what you never experienced. The pain of inaction lasts longer than the pain of action ever will. Waiting feels harmless in the present, but it compounds into loss. You lose time, momentum, and belief in yourself. You lose the chance to become who you could have been at that stage of life. Every season you delay action closes certain doors forever. Not because you failed, but because you never entered. And over time, those closed doors begin to define the limits of your life. Regret has a way of revealing itself when it's too late to change the outcome. It shows up in quiet moments, late at night, in stillness, when distractions fade. It appears when you see others living a life you once imagined for yourself, not because they're better, but because they moved while you waited. Regret doesn't scream. It sits beside you and reminds you of the cost of hesitation. The most painful form of regret is realizing that the life you wanted required courage you kept postponing. That your dreams didn't disappear, they expired, not from lack of ability, but from lack of action. Regret is the receipt for time wasted, and time is the one currency you can never earn back once it's spent. So don't wait for the fear to disappear. Don't wait for motivation to knock. Don't wait for someone to hand you permission. Move while you're unsure. Act while your hands shake. Start while it's uncomfortable, because time doesn't care about your intentions. It only responds to what you do. The habit destroying your life is believing that tomorrow is guaranteed. Stop waiting. Choose movement and take responsibility for the moment you're standing in right now.